Welcome to Out with Dan, the podcast that spotlights and examines the voices of LGBTQ+ authors, characters, and our allies. Together, we lift our voices and we tell our stories. I'm Dan White. Join me as I chat with this week's author. Hello and welcome back to Out with Dan. Today I'm beyond excited to talk to Wade Rouse about That's What Friends Are For. Some of you may know Wade as his pen name, Viola Shipman. He gave a pen name based on his grandmother's real name. Is that right?
That's exactly it. Yeah, it's a tribute to my working poor Ozarks grandma.
I love that. Wade is a USA Today bestselling and international bestselling author. And today we're going to talk about this new fabulous book, which I believe is the first novel you've had out in your own real name. Is that right?
That's it. Yeah, 13 Viola Shipman novels. This is the first under Wade Rouse.
All right. And was there a real reason to switch to your real name?
Yeah, it was a biggie, actually. You know, I signed a 3-book contract for more Viola Shipman novels about a year and a half or so ago. And I'm a big pitcher. I always send my editor, I'm not just a one idea author. And I had 4 or 5 down that I wanted to write. And I've always had this story kind of percolating for a number of years since COVID. And I couldn't hit send without including this proposal. And I didn't think they would react to it. I didn't think they would do anything. And my editor called me 24 hours later and said, "You've written so many beautiful stories that honor your family and your grandmother. This is a story that honors you and your history. And I think you should write this book under your own name." And that it just kind of catapulted out of the gate like that. And it's, publishing, to have a publisher support you in a different path it's unbelievable.
It's enormous. It is enormous. It really is enormous. I have chatted with so many authors who have a book deal and then they want to go a different way and their publisher pushes back and stuff like that. So that's always heartening to hear, Wade.
It is. I always say it's like Reese Witherspoon doing Legally Blonde 12. Everybody's like, keep doing it. It's funny. We love it. But, I think you want to, as an artist, you always want to push yourself. I always say when you're the most scared, the best things happen.
I agree with you. So give the audience an overview of what Friends Are For is about.
It follows 4 gay men over the age of 60 who each has a characteristic of one of the Golden Girls, and they live communally in Zsa Zsa Gabor's former very pink, very real mid-century mansion in Palm Springs, California. And they perform a drag troupe every month as the Golden Gays, in which they bring episodes of the classic sitcom to life for audiences in the desert. It's a way for them to connect and to make money. And each of them is harboring a secret in their golden years that they don't want to burden the other with, until Teddy, who's the Dorothy character in the book, his estranged sister, shows up on his doorstep with her teenage granddaughter in tow, and kind of everything comes unraveled. And, it's a story of friendship and found family and aging with grit and grace and a lot of grit. And what so many of us have gone through in our lives just to find love and respect and community.
Yes, I agree with you. So one of the things is it's set in Palm Springs, which I love the city of Palm Springs. And years ago, I on a trip to Palm Springs, I decided I know why people love Palm Springs, Provincetown, Key West, New Orleans, because they're destinations. People go there because they want to go there, not because they feel like they have to go. There are a lot of cities in this country where people are oppressed and they don't like their life and they wish they could get out. And so I don't find those to be very friendly. Whereas I think Palm Springs is extraordinarily friendly.
You are channeling me and the entire book. Honestly, you're exactly right. We were talking, I live in Palm Springs 6 months of the year. I live in a resort town called Saugatuck, Michigan 6 months of the year, which I call Gayberry. It's like Mayberry, but gay. And you're exactly right. There are certain communities in the U.S. In which people go to for a specific reason.
Right.
it's just not that they have to live and work there, but they go there for a purpose. And for many decades, Palm Springs has been a community for the gay community, to find acceptance, to find their people, to walk down the street holding hands with friends or someone they love, just to be with a community that loves and supports them unconditionally. And it's a special place. One of the first times I came here was on a vacation with my husband, Gary, and we went to Melvin's, which is kind of like that Rat Packy old school restaurant. And there was a couple next to us celebrating their 60th anniversary. And I got very emotional. I thought, my gosh, this is a place where we can grow old together, never having to hide who we are, after having to do that for decades of my life. So you're exactly right. So there's a different prism to communities that you go to for a reason, and Palm Springs is one of them. And that's why I wanted to set the novel here.
Well, I'm glad you did, because I recognize obviously a lot of the places. I know where Melvin's is. I've actually never been there, but now I've got a couple of other places I hadn't been that are on my list to go to. I, of course, know Street Bar and Hunter's and Sherman's Deli. I love Sherman's.
I love Sherman's.
It's so funny because I think I eat at Sherman's at least once every time I'm in Palm Springs.
You have to. It's like funny. People come out here and I'm like, where do you go? And I'm like, you have to go there.
You
got a slice of coconut the size of your head. I mean, you got to go.
And coconut happens to be my favorite. So the fact that you mentioned that, I just loved it. So I was like, okay, I got it. Yeah. So what about your growing up in the Ozarks, would you say influenced this book the most?
Oh my gosh. There was so much. Yeah. To start, I grew up closeted kid in the Missouri Ozarks in the 1970s and 80s. I played the trombone and I wrote poetry and read books, which are things boys in the Ozarks did not do.
Right. They didn't do it in Eastern North Carolina either.
Honey, it was tough.
It was.
And I emerged from my mother's womb basically dressed like this, jaunty little glasses. And it was hard. And, humor was one thing that allowed me to connect with people or to keep, bullies at bay. But I had a mother and grandmother that loved me unconditionally and loved, as they always said, my waydness. And I had an older brother, Todd, who was a true country boy in our family. He was the hunter, fisherman, tinkerer of engines, and he passed away when he graduated from high school in a tragic accident. Oh. And I was just entering high school. And I really buried myself along with him because I didn't want to hurt my family anymore. And I went away to college. My grandma and mom pushed me out of the nest, and I started watching the Golden Girls long distance with them as a way to kind of just reconnect before fraternity parties,
Right.
And it ended up, as we all know, covering huge topics at the time. And it served as a way for me to understand them better and for them to understand me better. There's so much in this book about hiding who we are. The abuse sometimes that we've experienced from our family. My father didn't speak to me for years after I came out. We finally were able to, have a relationship again. Friends dumped me. There's so much that we've endured. And what I wanted to cover in this novel is so much has changed in this world in the last 40 and 50 years, and so little has changed in the last 40 or 50 years. And I wanted to provide people a history lesson about our community and what we're the same damn things that we're still fighting for, and the same repression that we still face. But I wanted to do it with laughter, and I wanted to show them who we are and what we deal with and have dealt with our whole lives and how exhausting that is.
It is exhausting. And I think that word is something that shines through for each of your characters in a different way. They're not exhausting, but their lives have been exhausting.
Yeah.
And I think that golly, I'm going to step a little out on the limb here. I know for this child growing up gay, I believed I had to be perfect, and
Mm.
perfection doesn't exist in this world. But the number of times I put pressure on myself, even as an adult, even as a out and proud gay man, I still put a lot of pressure on myself to not disappoint others, or, to make sure somebody else's day is a little brighter. And it's all this responsibility that, I think having gay friends is a blessing, even if you're not gay, because we tend to make the world a better place just by existing. It
We
doesn't always
do.
feel that way to us, I don't think, but it's a better place for sure.
We do, and Dan, I think we're the same person. I think so many, especially gay men, grow up just wanting to be loved and accepted, and when we're not, it's like with our families, and especially our families, we fight for that acceptance, no matter sometimes how we're treated. We
Yeah.
want to make it. We want to make everything okay. We're people pleasers. We feel even though we haven't, we've done something wrong. So we want to make it right again. We want the world to be okay. And you're right. We go out of our way to make sure people are, we're complimenting them, we're loving them, we're appreciating them. And that's what eats at, that's what's beautiful about us and these characters, but what eats at us as well, because we never can be perfect enough. And that's what haunts each of these characters in a very different way, be it career or family or love life or friendship, is that quest to always make it better and okay. And it's impossible. And I think it's largely universal in the gay community.
I agree with you. So let's tell the audience a little bit about Coco and how Coco figures into this book, who Coco is, because I suspect all of the people I know are huge Golden Girls fans, but even some of them may not remember who Coco is.
Yeah, he was a lead character in the premiere episode of The Golden Girls, who was the ladies' openly gay chef and housekeeper. Actually, in a premiere, I think he goes to the dog races with Sophia. And they ended up showing, as they did, that pilot to test audiences. And Coco didn't test well. They blamed it on the kitchen. The kitchen could only hold 4 people. Test audiences loved Sophia, as we all did. And she was a recurring character that ended up becoming a lead. And he was cut. And I didn't even realize it till I kind of started rewatching episodes during COVID, as so many people did, like I did with my mom and grandma, as a way to connect. And I was like, my gosh, what must it have been like to have been an actor, to have the biggest role of your life, have that snatched away, and then spend the next 4 decades trying to recreate that. So I kind of reinvented the act. It was a real actor, Charles Levin, who went on to have a great career. But I fictionalized his life to wonder if you were an openly gay actor and man at the time, in the 80s, so many people were closeted. We thought Liberace was a showman. What must that have been like to just want that back again? So he really was the first character that kind of made me, really years ago, that made me kind of start thinking of how these characters would be. And I really wanted the characters to have kind of the deep traits of the Golden Girls without being a caricature of them.
Right. And I think you did that so well, because I think that, I was thinking this morning while I was reading, I thought, well, who am I of the Golden Girls? And I know when I was younger, I was definitely Blanche. I didn't have Blanche's confidence, but I certainly had Blanche's street smart, shall we say. But I think at this point in life, I am Sophia. Of my close friend group, I'm the oldest one of them. And I don't mind being the elder statesman or the old lady or whatever they want to call me. I don't care. I really don't. But I think to myself, I think that's the beauty of the show and your book, is the fact that we can relate to all of the characters, no matter what part of our life we're in, whether you're young or middle-aged or old. And I do love the fact that the 4 protagonists are over 60, because I'm
Yeah.
over 60, and we don't usually get to see ourselves represented as much in literature, because, like everything else, it's a youth dominated experience in this thing called life. And I don't mind that. I wondered when I was 30 and 40 how I would feel at 60. The
Yeah.
only thing that ever worries me is I have to use the word over 60. That's the only phrase that bothers me. All the rest of it I earned.
It's interesting. I really did, my previous Viola Shipman novels, when I started writing them, women's fiction, many of the characters are over the age of 40, many are over 60 and 70, because I wasn't reading fiction that had, women like that in them, or women like my mom and grandmother, just good people that worked hard and got knocked down by life and kind of forged on. And I hadn't read many, you know, novels with, gay characters that really focused on male friendship, that had endured a lot, and where the characters were over the age of 60. So that's always, you're exactly right. Society, gay culture, we are fascinated with, these folks on Instagram or Grindr, and what they look like, and how many followers they have, and what their body's like, and what they do for a living. And, my role models have always been my mom and my grandmothers, and my great aunts and my great uncles, and these kind of rocks in my life that have had incredible life experiences and taught me how to forge on. And that's what I'm hoping, especially younger readers, take away from this, is just to see our history and our beauty, and our strength. And I hope that comes across.
I think it does. And I think it comes across in spades. And I think, it is something that your book and lots of other books talk about it as well. And it doesn't necessarily have to be gay oriented. If we don't remember our history, we're destined to repeat it. And unfortunately, we're seeing that in this world so succinctly every day of our lives that, if I was reading something that I was like, you would think we had gotten past this, but do we ever really get past history? I think we just have to keep repeating it, sadly. I hate to say
Sadly.
that out loud.
No, that's what this novel is, and that's what we're facing right now. It's always one step forward, two giant steps back, and we can never take our rights or our safety, or each other for granted. Right now I feel like it's like we're running across quicksand, and if we don't keep moving, we're gonna sink and get stuck. And you're right. That is a message that I wanted to remind people of. And I have to say, it's been surprising a little bit to me that there are so many women readers that see themselves in our characters, and in our struggles, and in our fight. So much that they've taken for granted as well has disappeared too.
Yes, and I think that it's something that anyone can read and see themselves in, just as anyone can watch the Golden Girls and see
Yeah.
themselves in that as well. Because I think we're all going through this thing called life. Whether you're Leo's mom or whether you're Sid, it doesn't really matter. We experience both of those people in our everyday lives.
Yeah, I always say I say the best books are like mirrors. We hold them up and we see ourselves reflected in them, and that's the beauty of it. Is being able to walk for a while in someone else's shoes and see the world from their perspective, and at the end be changed as a result of that.
That's right. So I did notice you were in Florida on a book tour
Yes.
recently. And I know that, so before we started recording, Wade and I were talking about the fact that on April 2nd, you'll be at Zibby's in Santa Monica. So for any of the LA peeps, it's your chance to meet Wade in person.
Come on
And
back.
come on up. That's right. It's going to be a lot of fun. And so where else have you gone on tour with this?
Oh my gosh, we did 11 states in 2 weeks. A little over 2 weeks. It was a blur of a tour. We did Michigan, Florida, New York, Brooklyn, New Jersey, Cleveland, St. Louis, Chicago, Wisconsin, Baltimore, everywhere. And then we're kind of back for some West Coast events, which is lovely. The book's received a response that I hoped it would, but I didn't expect. It was named a March Today Show must read. And it's just, it's, I have to say on the Today Show, it really blew me away because when it was recommended, Kwame Alexander said, this is a book that made me call all my best friends and tell them that I love them, which is really gets to the heart of what I hoped it would do.
Well, I totally agree with Kwame. I think this book is absolutely magnificent. Again, the title is That's What Friends Are For. It is by the magnificent Wade Rouse. Thank you so much for joining me, Wade.
Thank you, Dan. I can't wait to see you at Zippy's. I'm excited to hug on you in real life.
That sounds like a winner, and I feel the same way. Hang on for me just a minute. Thank you for joining me for this week's episode of Out with Dan. You can find more information about this podcast and its host at OutWithDan.com, on Twitter at OutWithDan, and on Instagram and Facebook at GoOutWithDan. This podcast is hosted by Authors on the Air Global Radio Network, and the theme music is provided by bensound.com. Join us again soon for the next episode of Out with Dan.